It's always a pleasure to sit in the back of the room and listen to my friend and colleague, Peter DeFazio. What he said, we should do. Peter is somebody who deeply understands these issues. He is committed to a multimodal, multi-dimensional, multi-year approach. I think the most knowledgeable chair we've had, with the possible exception of Jim Oberstar, but Peter just talks in one language. Nobody else had any experience with Jim? Come on, give me a break. We go on trips with Jim, and he would do the translation. It was marvelous. I loved my service on the T&I committee with Peter and with Jim Oberstar. But I transitioned to Ways and Means because we have to pay for this stuff. And that has been a singular focus I have had during my tenure on Ways and Means, is for us to step up and provide the funding for the federal partnership. I am really tired of the infrastructure week fly-ins where people come and profess how much they support infrastructure to you. Nobody can support infrastructure unless they're willing to tell you how to pay for it. Bottom line. And it is past time that we do that. What Peter was talking about in terms of the rate that we have now in terms of being able to bond. You all know that the United States is falling apart while we're falling behind. And we have seen at the state level people step up and taking this in their own hands. Is it 36 states that have put together bipartisan initiatives to raise transportation revenues? And as has been exhaustively documented, the men and women who voted for that were reelected at a higher rate than the people who did not. There is no good reason to sit back and allow the deterioration to continue, put more and more of the burden on states and regions and local government, and be able to only have partial solutions. Peter's got a great roadmap. It deserves to be supported. We need to fund it. And I've been pretty clear for all the time I've been on the Ways and Means Committee that the first step is to raise the fuel tax. It is past time. We've lost 40% of the purchasing power, and given the increases in fuel efficiency, we're locked in a downward spiral. But the first step is to raise the fuel tax. The second step is to index the fuel tax. We should leverage the fuel tax selectively, because we are talking about investments that should last 20, 30, 40 years or more. And then we need to replace the fuel tax. Now, Peter referred to the pilot projects we've had in Oregon. I've been participating in the last two in terms of how we keep track of how far I travel, not where I travel, but how far I travel. We're getting to the point where we kind of understand how to deal with this with the public. One of the most important points is to allow the public to participate in how we're going to monitor the distance. Whether it's on the cell phone, whether it's odometer, whether it's a flat fee, there are many mechanisms we can have. Allow the public to be clear about what they prefer, as long as we end up being able to obtain the money. I think a national vehicle travel fee is going to provide other opportunities to improve the transportation platform. That same technology that will keep track of how far we go and deal with the payment mechanism. And that's important because, as you know, the fuel tax is an amazingly efficient mechanism. It doesn't cost very much. And we've got to be careful that we don't embark upon something that's going to compound the costs and erode the value of the investment. But having that platform gives us the opportunity to add value to the transportation experience. The same way to keep track of how far we go and be able to debit an account will enable people to have a seamless transportation experience. Being able to pay tolls, be able to pay for car share and bike share and parking. Have an app that will give them the closest parking space as well to pay for it. I mean, this is not rocket science. You're seeing applications being developed, but it's going to take time to implement it on a national level. That's why we start with the fuel tax index, but the replacement over the course of the next decade. I think we transition into the vehicle mile travel fee for electric vehicles, in part because we're moving rapidly towards the electrification of the system. It's not a lot of money today, perhaps, but it will compound over time. That's the future of American transportation. And it's a good way to road test what we want to do with the system. We can, Peter is looking at expanding the vehicle mile traveled fee pilot projects on a national scale in the next reauthorization. The reauthorization after that, we could in fact be transitioning into the next version. I caution against selectively picking things out. There's been some talk about doing something just with trucks on a limited basis. And I think we want to transition on a broader scale, get the buy-in, and at the end of the decade be able to make that transition. But we need to have the action now. It is painful to watch people dance around and come up with rationales about why not to do it. And it's putting pressure on local, on regions around the country. Lynn, I think I saw you here. What's happened from coast to coast. It's no excuse for the federal government to stay back on its heels. And although I'm interested that there are hints that the administration may want to be involved with a grand bargain, I have no confidence that that would happen. Zero confidence. Donald Trump contradicts himself before he finishes his statement. He's not a reliable partner to provide the foundation for moving forward. But the point is, we don't have to. I would suggest that we ought to start in the House and Senate, move things forward. I'll guarantee you that if it starts moving and looks like it's going to be successful, Donald Trump will be at the head of the line. I just finished an experience dealing with the negotiation of NAFTA 2.0, a treaty that was dead on arrival. We spent months working on it to put it in a form that it could pass, and he's claimed credit for a marvelous accomplishment. Well, he can claim credit for a marvelous accomplishment if we have a marvelous accomplishment. But I think it's a mistake to wait for the administration because we'll be left at the altar again. It's also important that this is injected into the conversation everywhere across the country in this election. I mean, let's have something substantive to talk about. And infrastructure is one of the areas where there are some reasonably good proposals that are being advanced by the candidates. I think there's an opportunity, and I love the fact that some of you participated in having a forum in Las Vegas a week ago where we had 4 of the major candidates who were part of this discussion. The more we have this discussion in communities across the country and deal with people in the House and the Senate specifically about what they're willing to do, the faster we're going to get there. I don't think there is a downside for politicians to step up and embrace and acknowledge it. You know the formula. It takes place in communities all across the country where the majority of the local sales tax, property tax, funding initiatives pass. And they pass with strong support. It's because you do the groundwork with the public. The public has some sense of what it is actually for, and you are accountable for results. And that's what we should do here. Peter's legislation, I think, is a good start in that direction. We need that accountability. I think there may actually be, what are we calling them now, congressionally directed projects. Earmarks is not to be named, kind of like Darth Vader, but that will make a difference. To be able to give a sense of accountability for projects that make a difference in our communities. I was proud of my congressionally directed projects. I put them on my website. We developed them with people in the local community, and they were part of the success stories. And that's what we need to do with your help. I appreciate you're not giving up on us yet. This campaign someday will be over. There will be another president. One thing that's not going to change is the need to rebuild and renew this country, to be able to deal with roads and transit and bikes and broadband, solid waste, sewer and water. Actually, what's under the surface, as you know, is in worse shape often than the roadways. We need not, for one moment, abandon that focus, but you need to hold us accountable with your local candidate forums, with the local initiatives, to find out what people here are going to do to be part of the solution, rather than continue to complicate the problems, and we lose another year, or 2 years, or 10. We can't afford to do that. And with your help, I don't think we will. Thank you very much.